Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by onX. The onX Hunt app is one of those things that I use every single time I go into the woods, and probably the most used tool overall when it comes to scouting and hunting and everything in between. So with this time of year, I'm doing a lot of spring scouting, shed hunting for whitetails in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And the way I'm using the onX Hunt app is I'm really using the computer to, do some scouting ahead of time, whether that's on my lunch break at work, or a couple minutes, before work or late at night, whatever that is. I'm, finding some areas I want to go into, I want to check out. And then when I finally get time to put boots on the ground and get in there and do some scouting or shed hunting, I'm utilizing the tracking feature more than just about anything. And what this allows me to do is see where I've been, where I've walked, and be able to kind of, map it out afterwards and kind of see, after the end of the spring, I can see all the places I went to, see if there's any gaps, any areas I didn't check out or I wanted to. It just really helps keep you organized and be able to plan for the upcoming season. So with the onX Hunt app, if you want to check it out and give it a try for yourself, head over to onxmaps.com and use the coupon code EMW. That'll save yourself 20% off of the Hunt app. So University of Elk Hunting, Elk 101, Corey Jacobson have come out with the most comprehensive elk hunting learning course available. It's all online at your fingertips, either through logging in to elk101.com or at the Elk 101 University of Elk Hunting app that they have that's available anywhere, anytime. Has all of the elk hunting knowledge from learning how to apply to different states, how to plan the hunt itself, what you're looking for, scouting, and all the way through to when you're hopefully packing out the bull at the end. All of that information is right there. And in my opinion, it's one of the most valuable things that you can invest in before you go on a trip, whether that's your first time or it's your 10th time going on an elk hunt. You can learn some information from this course. So if you head over to elk101.com and click on University of Elk Hunting, use the coupon code EastMeetsWest, and that will save yourself 20% off of the online course. And one of the new sponsors that I brought up last week is Tethered. So the Tethered team has created the ultimate tree saddle hunting setup. And last year was my first year using a saddle, and I was skeptical going into it, but it really changed the way I'm able to hunt and scout light and efficiently in the woods, especially in the mountains and areas that we have in the Appalachian region here in Pennsylvania. So last year I used the Mantis saddle, and this year they just came out with the new Phantom. So the Phantom saddle and the Predator platform literally weighs a total of 4 pounds. And then depending on your climbing method, you'll have an extremely lightweight setup that you can get up the tree quietly, comfortably, and able to just be a lot more mobile, which can be really important, especially on public and private lands alike. So if you head over to tetherednation.com, you can check out some more stuff on saddle hunting. And lastly, Exodus trail cameras. So they are running, they're having a pretty sweet deal that they're running on their Lift 2 cameras. You'd save $50 using the code SPRING20 for the first 100 orders. So this is a first come, first served basis. And this sale is going to start tomorrow. So I wanted to get the word out, before that sale started. I started, using their cameras here. Been using them for a few years and really, really liking them. The value proposition that you're getting with Exodus, a 5-year warranty, 5-year theft and damage protection. So what that means is 50% off a replacement if they're stolen or damaged. Like I had one damaged from a bear last year, and was able to get that replaced at 50% off. And also just the customer service that you get from this company is really unmatched. So if you're really unfamiliar with the Lift 2 camera that's the sales running for, it provides a really fast trigger speed and great video quality as well. The little 2-inch viewing screen allows for easy setup, and you can actually view the photos in the field without plugging it into an external camera, anything else there. The biggest thing that I like, about Exodus is, I shouldn't say the biggest thing, but one of the most important things is how great the battery life is. You run lithium batteries in these things, you won't need to change them all year, and that's been really great. So if you head over to their website, ExodusOutdoorGear.com, and check out all the details about the Exodus Lift 2. All right, so I wanted to, before we started, getting into some of the prelude here to this episode, I want to remind everyone, New Mexico big game drawing, for applying, the application closes on March 18th. That's your last day that you can put in. So just a reminder there, if you're going to apply in New Mexico, you might want to do that here soon, which I need to do that myself. Also, this week, have a whole bunch of new apparel coming in to the East Meets West store. I can't remember. I think there's like 7 or 8 hats and a bunch of different things that are coming out, and really excited about that. I haven't come out with some new products in probably about 4 months or so, but was ready to kind of do a revamp here and get some new stuff out there. So one of the things that I do within the store, and I've been doing this from the beginning, is I find conservation organizations that I believe in and donate 3% to it, to these organizations. And in the past, that has been BHA, or Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and also the QDMA, the Quality Deer Management Association. So for 2020, I've changed it up a little bit, and I'm doing it by quarter to each different organization. So for the first quarter, for example, 3% of the sales will be donated to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And then the following quarter will be the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, QDMA, etc. I haven't figured out exactly who I'm going to choose for the fourth one there yet, so feel free to shoot me some options there. I have a couple in mind. I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to choose at this point. But so that is that's something that I have, I truly believe in and want to be able to give back just, a little bit in any way I can. And that's kind of the method I've found to do that. So in last week's episode, I discussed doing, a social media post on Mondays called Mountain Buck Mondays, which is you, the listeners, submitting photos and, quick story of the hunt, that you were able to kill a mountain buck or a big woods whitetail, and just, kind of a little bit of either a backstory on it or, a tip that you used. And this one is from Lyle Karstetter. So Lyle wrote to me, he said, I don't get a lot of time to archery hunt with my work schedule in the fall. And, but I'm able to take off 2 weeks of rifle season for the past few years, and been incredibly lucky in those last couple of years. And 2018 and 19, he was able to get a triple trophy in Pennsylvania, which is turkey, buck, and black bear. And the story that I want to talk about here is the story of his 2019 buck. And I'll share this photo over on Instagram, so head over at East Meets West Hunt, or on Facebook, East Meets West Outdoors, to check this out. But so he had this buck on trail camera the last 3 years, and the first time he actually saw him in the woods in deer season, Lyle was able to kill this deer. And what he was doing was setting on the edge of an old clear cut on the ground, and he was struggling ever getting a pattern on him. But he would get, one trail cam picture here and one there, and then, all over the place. But he ended up being able to kill this deer on the first time that he laid eyes on him, and it is a complete tank of a mountain buck. So Lyle, thanks for sharing that story there. And if you have one of your own, send me an email at beau@eastmeetswesthunt.com, or you can shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you feel that your preference. So I got a few of them here that are lined up for the next few weeks. Pretty excited about that. And again, thanks Lyle for that story. So on today's episode, I have Justin Long from Crispi Boots on. And I'm really excited about this episode. Justin's a great guy, extremely knowledgeable about boots. And, with us that come from the West, coming from the East, it can be really difficult to find a place to try on boots or just knowing what you need when it comes to Western hunting and even whitetails, in my opinion. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail here in this episode. So everyone, check it out and enjoy. All right, we're live. I'm on the phone tonight with Justin Long coming out of Utah. What's going on, man?
Oh, turning and burning, selling boots, shipping boots.
Yeah. So Justin, let's get a little background to yourself. Why am I talking to you tonight?
So my position with the company, I'll kind of start with saying we are a small company. We run very lean, handle pretty much almost everything in-house on our side. But so I handle all of our national accounts. So I deal with all of our dealers face to face and over the phone as much as possible. And then me and Kendall, who is one of the owners, handle a lot of our marketing. So one of the reasons that we met at ATA was because that's, both of us are handling a lot of those shows, kind of chatting face to face with the consumer and with potential dealers. So, but I wear a lot of hats. So yeah. I have a lot of people asking me what I do, and sometimes I have to think for a second.
Yeah, it's funny. So, and the reason why I kind of wanted to, talk to you on the podcast here, Justin, was, I met you at the ATA show as I was coming up looking for a specific boot for my Alaskan hunt I'm going on this year, and I'd been, running some Crispi Wild Rock, the Gore-Tex 400 gram insulation for whitetails now for a couple years, and have really liked the fit and the quality of the boot and everything. So I kind of wanted to, once I find a boot company that fits my feet and, and the quality and stuff there, I like to stick with them. And so I was thinking about it, and, within the podcast and a lot of the, message I get across is helping people, planning and, finding adventure through hunting. And that can be, Western hunts, that can be, whitetail hunts in the Appalachian region. And a big part of that, comes down to gear. And one of the biggest things, hurdle with gear and myself was learning about the right boots, because, in a lot of hunts, actually in every hunt, like the thing you're doing more than anything is walking. So having, a good quality boot that fits your foot is really important. And when I get asked about gear questions a lot, and I'm like, if to go on, say even an elk hunt or something, you don't need to have the best of everything. But if I said there was 2 items that I would recommend to anybody to spend their money on, that would be boots and a pack. The things that you're spending a lot of time in, and, if any of those 2 things aren't working to, your expectations, it can kind of make it miserable.
No, I couldn't agree more. That's what I tell people all the time. I spent most of my childhood growing up on the East Coast, and I've got a lot of friends and family that come out and hunt since I've been out here so long. And I tell them the same thing. Boots, bows, and packs to me they're make it or break it. Something like that goes, or you have an issue with, or a malfunction, and it's pretty much pack it up and go home. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I'm sure you have, or have been with people that have hunted that, get a really bad, blisters or have something wrong with their feet, and that just completely ruins you. absolutely terrible. I remember the first time I started even bear hunting in Pennsylvania. And the rifle season, we do a lot of you basically get groups together and you drive them because it's so thick and on these steep side hills. And had these big, bulky, traditional hunting boots on, and I was putting it on. It just ate up my feet. I mean, to the point where on day 2, I felt like I couldn't even walk. And that was kind of my first wake up call before I, started elk hunting, that, a boot that works for this type of environment, I need to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we're getting a lot of guys. We're capturing a lot of the Western market. But, I think what's driving this company and our boots farther east is the whitetail hunter that's looking west. And we're getting guys that are going to, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, any Western state, chasing mule deer, antelope, elk, and basically buying a boot specific for that. And then realizing that when they get home, I invested a lot of money in this product, so I'm going to keep using it. And realizing that it has a lot of good attributes that fits their needs where they live as well.
Yeah. So I guess before we get real too deep into the boot side of things here, I'd like to get you mentioned about growing up. You said you grew up on the East Coast and lived out west for a while. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of that transition for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in South Carolina. Went to college there, and actually as a kid, so I grew up with horses. And when I was young, my dad actually took my brother and I to a dude ranch in Colorado. And it's exactly what you would expect. You go out and they put a bunch of city slickers on horses and ride around. But that was kind of my first exposure when I was young to how much bigger it is and just the lifestyle in general. And I was captured, went to college back east, and basically as soon as I graduated college, I hit the ground running and moved to Colorado, and then moved up to Wyoming. And that's actually where I've got family in Wyoming now, and spent quite a bit of time there. And yeah, I took a left turn and wound up in Salt Lake, and now I'm running a hunting boot company. So it's been an interesting road, but it's been a fun one. And what's been cool is following the drive to hunt out here. So I grew up somewhat whitetail hunting. I would say I was more probably of a waterfowl hunter. I've got serious ADD, and when I was growing up, you didn't really have an iPhone. So sitting in a tree stand for all day sits just was not going to happen. So it was like coming out here, it was just more akin to what I was wanting to do. Spot and stalk, constantly moving, being active, and it just, fit my hunting styles a lot more. And man, you want to talk about trying something new. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are listening to this podcast that, feel like it's a massive hurdle, but, the thing is until you just start jumping hurdles, you don't really know how to do it. So you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but the cool part is you learn a lot. After that first season of me hunting, I learned a lot. So it's been a fun venture. I did a stint of guiding while I was in Wyoming, and that teaches you a lot too. When your decisions are a lot more important than just personal failures. So it was cool, and now I still feel like I don't know anything. So I hunt with a lot of buddies here that have grown up and spent their entire lives in the West. And, I feel like as soon as you're stepping into the woods and you're not learning anything or picking up new tricks, then it's time to find something new. And I'm learning something new every day.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty tough to, with anything in regards to hunting, to completely master something. I feel like I'd never will be bored with it because there's always something to learn, and the animals are always, when you think you know something, they usually will make you rethink that pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, you start breaking it down and you think about what you're doing, especially on the archery side of things, to not only pick a location, pick a spot, figure out a time to go. locate the animal you're chasing, and then make a game plan to get close enough, have that little bit of luck on your side, and for all the stars to align. I mean, it's a pretty tricky business, and I feel like you start out with just like, all right, if I could just see some elk, and then it turns into like, all right, if we could just get close to some elk, and then, you get your first, elk, whether it's a cow or a bull down and whatever size it is. And then you start thinking, okay, let's be consistent. And then it turns into a whole nother ball game. So, it's been great. I've been out West now I'll be 33, in June. And I've been out since I graduated college. So right around that, I think I moved when I was 21, 22, right after I graduated.
Nice. So you definitely have been there a good part of your adulthood and got to learn it. And one thing you said there was something I stress with, everybody. I've only been going out West now for 4 years, and it's, there's no real shortcuts to it. There's a lot of things you can do and invest in learning about things and research and stuff that'll help that learning curve. But there's nothing that replaces just doing it. And with once you make that initial investment, get some gear and get some things to do it, you can do it for a relatively low cost every year. Out West, you can go hunt states, have over-the-counter tags, whether it be elk, for mule deer, antelope, anything along those lines, and get a couple buddies to split the cost of driving or whatever else, and just make it happen. And that's the best way to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just part of it. I mean, so many people stress over the process of planning that it's even locations. Obviously there's states that have more elk than others that are better hunting. There's locations within those states that are better. But, I mean, in general, the bulk of your Western states that have elk, have mule deer, you're going to find something somewhere.
Yep.
It might not be as good as, like I said, other locations, but you get better at looking for locations of where they might be, when they might be in certain locations, and you get more educated with your guesses, I guess I could say. And you learn a lot. That first time hunting, you blow a couple stalks because of the wind, or you make a couple bad decisions, and it's like, oh, well, I won't do that next time.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's, I'm very guilty of, when it comes to planning, sometimes I overcomplicate things and, overthink hunting areas and spots and everything else. And, it just as long as you don't let that completely, like, paralysis by analysis, as long as you don't let that happen, you'll be fine. But it's just really just doing it. If there's a tag allotment for a certain area, then there's going to be animals there to find. It's just, you got to find them.
Oh, absolutely. I say it all the time when I'm hunting with some of my buddies of, like, Onyx has been phenomenal for my success, being able to constantly see that and track and make notes. But I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting on a ridge and I've had like 3 decisions to, locations that I want to go to. And I've sat there for way too long and not done anything because I can't make up my mind.
Yeah.
So
it reminds me how I feel every morning during the whitetail rut as I'm sitting in my driveway in my truck, not sure where to go. Like, I'm literally have my bag packed, my stand on my pack, and I'm like, I don't know where to go. I have 1,000 spots that I've scouted all year and I can't find one.
And nobody forgets their doubt like hunters forget their doubt, until you've killed that animal, until you've like been successful, you had so much doubt in your mind and questioned every decision you made. And then as soon as you were successful, you're like, oh no, I knew exactly what I was doing the whole time.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So anybody that tells you they had the perfect game plan and it all came together and there was no doubt, they're lying.
Yeah. Even like I'll be in a tree and I'll look over and see a tree 20 yards from me. I'm like, that tree is the one I should have been in. Like, damn it. Like, this is what I needed to do. I screwed it up. Yeah. Then if it works out, I'm like, hey, I knew this is the right tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't actually going to move.
Yeah. I was just thinking of scenarios.
But it's been good, and I've had to seriously change a lot of my game moving to, now that I'm in Salt Lake and Utah, that, it's tougher. there's a lot of over-the-counter tags here in Utah, and the hunting is good. But I moved from a pretty big mecca, having been in Wyoming for so long, and almost took advantage of it a little bit. You kind of start to see how the rest of the world is, and it's having to play the tag games now and learn all the different states. And it's been nice being centrally located because I can travel much easier to different states and hunt. But it's a whole nother ballgame. I'm on the level playing field for most of everybody. Whether you're in the Midwest who hunts a guy who hunts whitetail and wants to come hunt elk. I mean, it's no different than what I'm doing. He can do everything I do. I don't really have a leg up.
Yeah. What is cool, I noticed this past year when I was driving to Idaho, I had never, I've seen Salt Lake on a map and stuff and never been there, but I drove, somewhat close to there. And there's, you're on the corner of, a few states there that you can kind of bounce around to if you can. And I thought Salt Lake was in a pretty cool location.
It's a great spot, especially for me traveling quite a bit. It's easy for me to get in and out, but then, I can drive, even on the long side, 7 hours in any direction, and I can hunt, a multitude of states, whether it be, northern Idaho, Montana, northwest corner of Wyoming, or, down in New Mexico, Nevada, or even Texas, Yeah. So it's been pretty cool. Now, growing up on the East Coast, if somebody would have told me that I was going to be driving 8 hours to go hunt, I'd have told them they were crazy. But you live out west long enough and you start realizing nothing is close.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like I know here, if I have to drive 3 hours on a weekend, it always seemed like that was a big deal. Like to go hunt somewhere or whatever it might be. And then my brother moved to Colorado, and I went out to visit him this summer for my first like Western non-hunting related trip, and just to I'm like, oh, he lives in Colorado. The mountains, you can see him from his door, but it still seems like a 2 or 3 hour drive to anywhere to camp or hike or, do a lot of those things. And that's just normal for, people living in the West.
Yeah, it's big country.
That's for sure. But, so Justin, next thing I kind of want to, talk about here is a little bit about like the background with Crispi, because I feel like I just started hearing of Crispi boots, in the last 4 years or so. If does that timeline sound about right?
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. So as far as the company goes, everything that everybody listening is going to be affiliated as far as Crispi is going to be the North American distribution, which is who I work for, and the actual mother company is based in Italy. It is a family run business. It was founded in 1975, so Crispi, by its name and by the company, is by no means new to the cobbler world and to producing high-end footwear. It was founded by a guy named Alessandro, and now his son and his daughter both have a hand in running the company. Federico, who we deal with quite a bit, he does most of your design and concepts, and that's who we work with directly. As far as producing boots. What's been really cool with this relationship is that, not that we've been given the helm, but they've realized the market and how big it is here, and what we've done is we've gone to them and been able to basically create products specifically designed for the North American market. So, which is very different than a lot of our competitors, as what they're doing is implementing boots that are maybe made for another market into this market. We've got the ability to actually go to them and say, hey, this is what the North American hunter needs, and this is how we want to build it. And it really makes us unique in that factor. And it's not just on a performance base, it's also on a fit. We are built in Italy, but we build all of our boots on a North American last, which a last, for a little bit of a technical term, is going to be the actual mold of the boot. And that actually gives the shape of the boot. And typically your European last is going to be narrow, and then your North American last is going to be a little bit more gracious, which is what we bring it in for. So I think that's been one of our big successes is that we fit a lot of the North American style feet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've tried a few different European brand boots, and that's what I felt like they were a little bit too narrow for me. And I guess I didn't know the term last or any of the details between, North American versus, the European style there. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So basically, it started with, some core models, and we've kind of bumped up and gone from there. And it's been one of the great things, like I said, for them being able to basically look to us and say, hey, what do we need to do? And we collaborate and we can change materials, construction, all the way to visual appearance and colors and aesthetic look of a boot. So because it is different, you go to different markets throughout the world and people like different colors, they like different visual appearances, and they need different performances. And so it's been great to do that. And what's also been, a big benefit for Crispi is that we do what a lot of our competitors don't do is we give you a gamut of tools for all kinds of different trades. And, our boots are definitely born in mountain hunting. They're born in Western hunting. But like we've kind of been talking about, is there's a lot of attributes to the whitetail world. And we're also seeing that, and we're seeing a lot of requests for more whitetail driven product. So, we're definitely listening, and we're trying to produce that while still, trying to stay somewhat to our roots.
Yeah. And like when you and I were talking at the ATA show, I was, referring to most of the East Coast. So just throughout the Appalachian range here, we have 5.4 million hunters that go through there. There's a ton of people. And a lot of that, through the Appalachian Mountains, it can still have a lot of the Western vibe to it, where it's still, you're having some steep terrain. It's just different. It's not as open. It's thicker. Some of the areas may not have as many rocks. There's just different, I guess, attributes to it, but there's still a lot of the same things. Where for me in my whitetail hunting, I was always told growing up and watching it on TV and stuff, you needed rubber boots. You needed this to hunt whitetails, because that's what all the Midwest guys, were doing at the time. And that just didn't fit the model. Like, my feet were sweating, and then I'd be cold by the time I got to the stand. And I had learned that my feet will stay warmer in a lightly insulated or uninsulated boot, just because my feet don't sweat when I'm hiking in. You could hike in, 1 to 2 miles to your stand, set it up, everything like that. If you're wearing the right socks and everything with it, then when you have a lighter weight boot that, whether that's a leather or some of the other materials there, they breathe better. So again, you're not sweating and creating that, to get cold as you, set in the tree stand for long periods of time. So that was like a huge eye opener for me. And once I, purchased a good pair of boots for that was, had kind of the mountain hunting style to it and the stability and everything else, but it was just a complete game changer.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so one of the things, like I said, I just think it's a huge misconception, and I want to just get that point across is, just because something says, 1,200 grams insulation or whatever that might be. One, there's a bunch of different types of insulation, which I'm sure you can talk about more intelligently than I can, but that doesn't mean your feet are going to stay warmer depending on, your condition. If you can get dropped off by an ATV and set in your tree stand, then that might be, that might work just fine. But when you're walking and doing those things, the moisture management is huge, and just, everything else along those lines.
Yeah. And, I think, like we had said before, boots tend to not get the forefront of attention, because it's not something that's right there visually in your face, like a jacket or a backpack is. So it's a little bit behind on the curve of people being aware of what high quality is, and what makes a high quality product, especially a boot. And then B, what does a high quality product do for you? It's a lot of people ask us what's different from, with our boots compared to somebody else, what justifies the cost, because it's, I'm not going to be the one to shy away from the question of your boots are expensive, and they are a top tier product. But, what we've done is the R&D to develop that, product that's going to be specifically designed for its attribute. And then we are using top tier products. We are trying to be cutting edge with new material that comes to light that does get developed, construction processes and everything else. So, that's kind of my selling point for our boots is that, it gives you the best performance because it's got the best technology and products being used into the product.
Okay. And so could you kind of like go through some of those different features or qualities of the boot that, that make it that top tier, like some of the different components of it?
Yeah, absolutely. All of our soles, we'll start kind of at the base. All of our soles, we work in conjunction with Vibram. And it's been a great relationship. They allow us to either design or, have use of any kind of tread pattern that they can come up with. The other nice thing with Vibram is that it's a very large company. It has the financial resources to be able to continue to do the research and develop new cutting edge, lightweight, super traction, long lasting soles. So, and then we can partner with them to use that. And it's been great. So that leads into our base area. And then we go into our construction, which, is really more of a time tested method. So we use this method called board lasting. And, I'd said the term last before, and basically what a lot of people are used to is the old school shanks in a boot, where you actually have like a steel shank that's inlaid in there and it gives it the rigidity of it. What we have is a board last. And if you would kind of look at the bottom of your foot, it's the same outline of the sole of a shoe. And it's basically inlaid in between that sole and the upper. And it's a combination of nylon and like a carbon weave. And basically you add or subtract certain attributes, whether carbon or nylon, and it gives its rigidity and also its shape. And it also gives it the shape of the boot and the rigidity of the sole. The cool part about that is that there's no weak point in a sole anymore. So with our boots being based in mountain performance, sole performance is somewhere that you can really tell an inferior product. So with a board last, you're going to get that great rigidity from toe to heel, and it's not going to flex on you in areas that it shouldn't, or torque. And then you stretch into our uppers, which we basically use a couple different now. It was pretty much two for a long time, basically a leather or a synthetic like a Cordura. And our Cordura is going to be a very abrasion resistant, but the whole purpose of us using that is for breathability. For guys that are in hot climate, warm climate, or just have very naturally warm running feet, it's got larger pores, so it allows that sweat vapor and heat to escape that boot and do exactly what you were talking about earlier, allow your feet to not overheat, sweat too much, and then allow you to get cold or just soaking wet, which can in turn create blisters. What we've done actually with Cordura this year is we've created a new material, and it's actually called a PU Tech. And this is you're gonna see it dropping in some of our new products, some boots that we did some revamping on. And basically what it is it's a Cordura base that's got a polyurethane weave in it. So just as light, just as breathable, but about 8 to 10 times more durable and puncture resistant. So perfect example of trying to stay on the cutting edge of materials, and just provide a better product for the user. And then, stepping from those into our leathers, we source all of our leather from specific tanneries, primarily in Europe, and we actually source those from the same sections of a cow. So, there's different sections of a cow which has different thicknesses of leather, different consistencies, different inconsistencies. And we source them all from the same location. So it allows us to, have a consistent product while still being handmade, and not having these huge variables. So that's going to be most of our materials that we're using. And then the other big thing that's going to be added to a lot of our boots, which a lot of guys get confused with, is it's called ankle bone support system. And it's just, we abbreviate it as ABSS. And what we've done is we've taken like a memory foam and we've inlaid it into the upper of the boot, and it actually will wrap around your ankle bone to create, a nice secure lock and eliminate a lot of your lateral movement. So it's little technologies like that go a long ways, especially when you're, at 10,000 feet or have an 80-pound backpack on.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And the other component that I see in most of your boots, and maybe all of them, correct me if I'm wrong, but is adding, the Gore-Tex liner in there as well.
Yep. So that's kind of our big, our big end feature with all of our boots is that we run and are licensed by Gore-Tex and work directly with them, a full liner in there. And what's different with our product compared to a lot of boots out there is that a lot of boots will run a liner on the side of your product. And then what they do is they tuck it in just under the sole, because a lot of them see no need, which as a new boot, you don't have any need for Gore-Tex under your foot. What we've found is that after, an exponential amount of miles, that Gore-Tex will actually pull out of the sole, especially at your flex point. And that's usually the first place where you start getting water in. So what we've done is we actually inlay a full Gore-Tex bootie that is tested beforehand to make sure that everything's 100% waterproof and inlaid in there. So it actually wraps and goes all the way under. So if you envision like a sock, it gets inlaid into the boot, and then it basically ensures, the boot's 100% waterproof.
That makes sense. And it's funny, like, growing up, there's two components of a boot that I was always told, like either from my dad or somebody else, about like what you should look for. Is like, oh, if it's a good boot if it's got Gore-Tex and Vibram soles. That was two components that I've always looked for. And with Gore-Tex, I mean, it's in a bunch of different products, not just boots. And the great thing is the breathability of it, but also being able to be waterproof, all due to the pore sizes in the Gore-Tex liner.
Absolutely. And I talk to a lot of people that have had, some issues with Gore-Tex products in the past. And typically it is because of what I had mentioned before. It's not necessarily a failure in the Gore-Tex. It's a failure in the construction and usage of that Gore-Tex. So, where somebody might get a leak in their boot, it's because the way that Gore-Tex was utilized and built into that product, it allowed water to basically go around the Gore-Tex to get into the product. Whereas with our products, being able to, put that full inlay in there, it really creates a foolproof barrier.
Yeah, and I can think of a specific. I have a lightweight hiking boot that I've had for a bunch of years, and it seemed like it's just not waterproof anymore. I'm like, it's Gore-Tex. I've never had Gore-Tex fail on me, but that makes sense. That's probably the reason for it. That it didn't. It wasn't a full liner, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you kind of went through, the components there of, what makes a quality boot and what to look for. So how do people go about choosing the right boot for their need? Like, is there any sort of, thing they should look at, or kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the downfalls of having quite a few options is that it does make it a little bit more of a difficult decision. But really what you got to try and figure out first is, so what's your attribute? What are you going to be doing? Are you wanting an insulated boot? Do you want a non-insulated boot? And the big thing that I tell a lot of guys is to be honest with it. Be honest with yourself and what you want in a boot, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to live with the boot you purchase. And if you're going over the cool factor or a boot you think you need versus a boot you need, you're not going to be happy with the performance. So, if you're primarily going to be an archery hunter, and that's what you're going to be doing, that's what you're going west for, that's what you're maybe, predominantly doing for whitetail, then looking for something as a non-insulated boot is a great option. If you're maybe an opportunist hunter that has no idea where he's going to be, you could be hunting antelope one year, or you could go to Alaska and go on a caribou the next year. And then you could be in Idaho chasing elk the year after that. And, you might be on a rifle hunt, or you might be on an archery hunt. That's a big portion too, because we make boots that are right there in the middle of the road. So really being able to take those steps of, do I want insulated or non-insulated? And that's going to eliminate or, create boots that are right up your alley. And then the next thing is body size and fit. If you're a bigger guy, we tend to push guys over to like our polyurethane soles. They're a little more durable. They're a little more comfortable. And then some of our lighter guys, we can push into that EVA sole. But then that also fits into, are you a weight, an ounce counter, because then we can bump into something that's super lightweight. There's a lot of different options that you can go with. And to be honest with you, the best option for you is to do your research, look at boots that you think are worth it. And then you can even call our customer service, and walk through it. So for a lot of guys, they've already got like 3 or 4 boots in their mind that they want. And it's just a matter of kind of doing the talk through process and figuring out what you want and what's going to be the best option for you.
Yeah. And so one thing that I've noticed with a lot of high quality products and, for example, when I worked for, a Sitka dealer, and, a lot of guys wanted one product that was going to work for everything. And, when you get to these high quality products, they're purpose built for, certain tasks. So a lot of times, there's compromise, if you're going to buy one good boot that's good for, September elk hunting, it may not work as well for, late November, say even whitetail hunting. But there is some things you can do with that. Like one thing that I've done with to make my boots, last longer, I guess, throughout the season is, so I would wear like my boot that I would wear out west in September. I wanted to be uninsulated, breathable. And if I'd go to the tree stand in November, you could always get like a booty or something that you could slip over it to help add that
like
insulation.
An over booty.
Yeah. Like I use those a lot, and I can get, my Wild Rock boots that are only 400 gram insulation. I can sit down temperatures around 0 degrees with them, with just adding a little, basically a slipper that goes over top of it that I shove a hand warmer in there, and that extends, the life of, or in the use of your boot, too, if you're, for the, those guys and girls that are doing the, Western thing and also hunting whitetails here on the East. So I think that's a big thing. And as I, go through hunting and, want to start, buying more gear and investing in it, then I'll buy a more insulated boot for those colder weather hunts. But there's definitely ways to, get around it as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have some very niche boots that fit a very specific, hunting environment and outing and individual, but we do have quite a few that fit that do everything well, frame. I'll kind of give a plug for our Nevada boot. It's an all leather boot that comes insulated or non-insulated. The insulation level that we offer in it is a 200 grams, so it's on the lighter side. Those are very, very do everything boots. I talk to a lot of people that are like, man, I'm going to be going on, I'm just getting into Western big game hunting, or I'm a big whitetail hunter, but I'd like to go on a mule deer hunt or an elk hunt in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's usually where I put them, because, a boot like the Nevada, or even our Guide, which is a slightly taller boot at 10 inches, that's a boot that you could take anywhere in North America in any scenario. It's going to do it well. It does 75% of your time perfect. That 25% on the outliers, you might be a little warm in certain situations. You might be a little cold in other situations. But as a whole, I can have one of those boots and know that every time I grab it, it's going to do it very well.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And with some of the certain boots and things, and I guess for me when I look at it is like, as you basically said earlier, was finding out what I'm doing the most of, and buying based off of that, and then making it work well in other conditions. Might not be the absolute best fit for it, but it's you're stretching your dime a little bit there.
You are, and what we're seeing now too is we're seeing a lot of guys coming back for round 2 and 3. They've bought a guide, they've bought a Nevada, or they've got a Wild Rock, and they're like, hey, I love this boot. I want a super lightweight, breathable option for a high country mule deer hunt in September. And then we go that route, so it's been cool to see that life cycle of guys coming through. They kind of bite off a little bit, taste test some, figure out how it is, and then they just love it. And it really is, and until you've gone down that road, especially for guys who have bad feet, that constantly are fighting their feet, fighting their footwear, until you've stepped into that realm to where you can kind of set it and forget it, it's life-changing. For a guy that's coming on a 10-day hunt and this is his hunt, for the entire year, the last thing you want to be doing is day 3 figuring out how to work moleskins and figuring out what you're going to do about this blister or that blister.
Yep. Yeah. That's the same process that, I was going through, and why I stopped and talked to you, at the booth. Like I was, for me, like my next step was, all right, I had the Wild Rocks there. I want something, lighter weight, breathable, like things like the, Thors came to my mind. I was like, man, I could use those for shed hunting. I could use those for spring turkey hunting. I could use them for, early season archery, and then, Western hunting, a whole bunch of different, avenues there. And it's just, I started out with one, and as I geek out on gear and stuff probably more than I should, but I like to, once you find something that works, I just want to keep going with it.
It is. And, I'll be the first one to ask somebody when they call and they want to try our boots. It's the first question is what I ask them is, what do you not like about your boots right now? And every now and then you'll get the guy who's like, man, I love my boots. And I'll tell him like, hey, no love lost here. If you found something that works for you, don't fix it if it's not broken. Because it's so subjective for guys. And I'm very aware that our boot isn't going to work for everybody. So it's just, feet are about as subjective as everything.
So I guess what would you tell someone, on the East Coast where they might not have, a lot of dealers or places you could try it on? What are some options to kind of see if a boot would work for you?
So our boots run pretty true. We typically tell guys to stick with their standard size, whatever size that is your go-to size when you walk into a store and somebody says, all right, I'm going to pull this boot for you. What size do you want? 90% of the time that's, maybe even 95, that's usually the one that works. What's great with our boots is we do offer wides, for guys that do have the wider foot. Like I said, our boots do run on a North American last, so they are more gracious. We typically tell guys that unless you're wearing a wide and everything, you probably don't need it in ours. The other thing we recommend guys doing is if you can order, the 2 sizes that you're kind of flirting with. And the nice part is you can return them, get it, you can try them on side by side, and then return the boots, that doesn't fit and keep the other ones. So, it's usually a good way to do it. And as we progress, hopefully, the goal is that we have a dealer within driving distance of all of our customers. So,
yeah. And that's one thing you said about the return, being able to return things. Like, that's what's great about the time we live in now. It's not that hard to return things or do anything along I would rather, buy the right boot and say even buy a few. Yeah, it might hit your credit card for a little bit there, but being able to, try it out in your house, climb up the stairs, go do whatever, make sure you get what's right rather than just settling for what's down the road.
It's the peace of mind of knowing you have the right one. Then you're not second guessing on it. Did I get a half size too big, too small? In this day and age, it's too easy to return stuff. I mean, you can purchase them directly through us. We send out, a free prepaid return label. Most of our dealers are, doing the same thing. They're doing some form of easy, whether it's free shipping to you and then you can get them coming back. But it's everybody that's doing e-commerce these days. If you're too far from a dealer, it's they're making it as easy as possible to be able to do returns like that. So, it's tough to try and get people to do that, but it is guys are starting to see the ease of it, and it does make it nice to have both those to try on. So
yeah, that's for sure. So what's coming out new from Crispi this year? You'd kind of mentioned a few things to me, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about it.
Yeah, so the big thing which seems to be getting a lot of buzz is we've got a new trail runner style shoe coming out. It's going to be called the Ativa, and yeah, it's pretty sweet. I think it's going to be one of the few trail runners, if not the only, that's on the market that was built for hunters. I think it's going to be a big push, especially here in the Western market. But then the other thing that we're really excited about is we're coming out with we've got the Wild Rocks like you have, but we're going to run that in an 800 gram insulated boot this year. So I think we're going to really be able to capture some market for some guys that want to pack that extra insulation, especially for later season hunts. Super excited about that. And then the other big change is that new material that I was talking about called PU Tech. We've integrated that into a lot of our boots. So guys that are running those super insulated, very breathable boots, it's going to add an extra layer of durability and just make these boots just keep pounding mile after mile and, get a longer lifespan out of everything. So, not a whole lot new, just some more integration and a couple pieces here and there.
Yeah, I think that 800 gram boot is going to be huge for the whitetail side of things, because it's a good level of insulation that you might not even need the booties for some colder weather, but you're not gonna sweat real bad as you're hiking.
Well, and that's the thing, you're getting a boot performance. Walking a mile or two in rubber boots, like, it sucks. So to be able to wear something that's got good insulation, but then also very breathable and has a good fit, I think guys are going to really appreciate that. And then to be able to know that they can count on the insulation to keep themselves, warm and sitting in a stand. And, you don't kill anything from the couch. So whatever keeps you in the stand longer and keeps you more comfortable longer, leads to more success.
Yeah. And Justin, I've tried everything before with rubber boots to try to make it so my feet wouldn't sweat and get cold. I've tried changing my socks at the base of the tree before I'd climb. I've tried literally just wearing like a basic cotton sock with a garbage bag or like a Walmart bag around them so the moisture wouldn't soak through, and changing to another pair of wool socks at the tree. And like, I've tried everything and it's all miserable, as bad as it sounds. So it was really a game changer for me being able to find something, because I had quality clothing, I was staying warm like that, but my feet would just freeze and I couldn't sit. And like, when you have say a week off of work during the rut or a couple days, you need to make the most of that time, and I like to sit dark to dark and in those times, and not waste any daylight. So being able to stay comfortable in that is really big.
Absolutely. It's along with everything else. The more you can be out there, then the higher your odds of success are. And that goes for any hunt. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a tree stand, or if you're, climbing a mountain looking for goats. If you've got to go home because your feet are either uncomfortable, you've got blisters, or they're cold, like I said, you're not gonna be successful on your hunt. So it's one of those things that we've tried to really integrate into our motto is just this, like I had mentioned, the set it and forget it. And the only time we want you to think about your boots or your feet is, when you're putting them on in the morning and when you're taking them off at night.
Yeah. So Justin, is there anything else you can think of that you think that would be helpful for everyone to listen to or cover here?
We've got as far as looking for knowledge, we try and put up quite a bit of stuff on our YouTube account to try and answer questions for guys. It's this day and age, everybody's a wealth of knowledge or trying to gain more knowledge. And we try and put up quite a bit. So I'd urge guys to go on, listen to some of that stuff. It's going to go a little more in depth about each model, some comparisons between insulated, non-insulated, stuff like that. And like I had mentioned before, pick up the phone, give us a call, shoot us an email. All of us in the office are avid hunters. We spend a lot of time in the product, and we spend a lot of time designing product specifically for it. So give us a call. All of us are happy to help guys through it. So make sure that you make the right decision, so it can make or break a hunt.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any place else that people can find any information you want to give out, social media or anything else?
Yeah, our Crispi Hunting is our Instagram page. We're constantly putting stuff up there. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got quite a few influencers out there that that are doing a lot for us, between Hush and Born and Raised and Gritty and Tim over at Solo Hunter. Those guys are a wealth of knowledge as well. So, and they put out quite a bit of content on our boots too. So
cool. All right, Justin. Well, hey, I really appreciate you, coming on and talking to me here. I love getting to, talk to and then be able to, support companies in any way that I can that are, hunting companies that the hunters are behind the actual company itself. And I like that. And I think, anybody else can highly consider it.
No, it's been great. So I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night.
Yep, you as well.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.